unmuted everyone. June, can you go ahead and speak again? Let's see if we can hear you here. Can anyone else?
Advanced financial statement. Eventual final statement we're going to discuss about everybody's been kind of working with the financial statements and know how to use an MIP report writer. But today, what we're going to discuss kind of further into more of an advanced section of the reporting where you can kind of do some additional modification with the financial statement using a custom column. Then we're going to do the creating the statement activities, and also going to kind of dive more in depth into your financial reporting. So MIP offers many different types of financial statements to meet your organization's specific reporting needs. And here's some of the lists that is available in the financial report. I'm not going to kind of name them one by one, but I'm going to kind of see if this is usually located under the reports, financial statements. Then when you do that from the drop-down menu, you see a create statement format, financial position, statement of activities, balance sheet, combined balance sheets, and whatnot. And so this is pretty much the report that we usually use out of the MIP to create a board report, your audit reports, or any specific report that you want to put out in a nice, clean fashion, so that your end user, like your management, your board members, or your audit report. And so today we're going to kind of dive into more of some of the other areas that you may not have been aware of that you can do in MIP. So let me just kind of jump right in. We have something called a segment substitution. What do you mean by the segment substitution? Well, in most cases, when we write a financial statement format in MIP, we usually pretty much put our expenses and we kind of select our general ledger codes. But with the segment substitution, and there's a little part in the outline of your financial statement, you can select the selected format or segment where you can create a report. So let's say, for example, maybe I want to, instead of showing my general ledger side of it, I wanted to run a report where I want to run by maybe my fund, or maybe my programs, or my department, or other segment of my reports in my financial statements. So by using a segment substitution at the report time, I can replace these general ledger code value into something different in the part of your segment. Now, also keep in mind, though, is if you want to use a segment selected at the report time, you have to make sure that you select all the print details of your report. Okay? So, all righty. So, going on to the next side of it. So, in order to use a segment substitution, once you have that in your financial format, what you want to do is on your report, on the Options tab, there's a section called Financial Statement, Segment to Substitute for General Ledger Segment into the other values that you're looking for. So right now, the report is set up for none. But once you created that in the financial format and you select this segment, selected a report time, then you can choose different parts of the segments in your financial or in your chart of accounts. In this particular case, I have a fund, grant, program, department, 117, and also have a fund group and grant group. So again, we can substitute those values into our report. So as a result of that segment substitution, this is a sample report using a segment substitution. So say, for example, in my revenue side of it, instead of showing my different GL counts for the my revenue code, well, I went ahead and substituted for my program, healthcare, social services, and daycare. So this is value that I'm using in my revenue section. But in my expense side of it, in the personnel cost, I'm just using just a general ledger value. So you can see the segment substitution value that you can see in your reports here in the revenue side. Okay? So going on to the next. the financial format. Again, I'm kind of talking about the details of creating different formats. Now, many of you guys are familiar with this section, but I just kind of want to highlight different little areas also. So again, as you're aware of that, one of the things that when people create a format, we pretty much accept the statement title. But I just want to let you know that we can substitute a different name if you want to see in the reports. Also keep in mind though, is that these are different statement types that's available in the MIP. We've got the statement of financial position, statement of activities, balance sheets, revenues and expenses, and the statement of cash flow. So that should hopefully give you the value that that you're looking for in the reports. So I'm kind of more or less kind of going to a kind of in-depth, kind of step by step. So the format name you want to give, you know, in this case, you want to give something, you want to give where a format name that you want to give. In this case, I just call it the statement of activity, expenditure sub, because I'm looking for sub accounts. But on the statement title, I just kind of give it a statement of activity. But once again, you can change it to the different headers, and then the statement title, put in the report headers that you want. Then next, once I have the value set up, you can create outlines. Now, in the icons of our statement formats, we have add lower level, add same level, add lower level. We got the properties. We can delete. We can go up. We can go down as value in our created outlines. Also keep in mind though is my revenues. I usually call those my statement level 1, and my grant revenue is a statement level 2. Now, just keep in mind, I'm going to kind of explain to you what that level means a little later different. But again, though, is your outline is your report outline that you wish to create in your reports. Now, this is a sample of what you could do. But again, though, is that we can create a custom report format to match your requirements. Okay. So when you assign the count tabs, again, I kind of went ahead into, here's the section title, in this case expenses, and I went ahead and put all my expenses values into my report. Then also I don't want to print detail. The reason I'm putting a print detail is that I am also doing the segment substitution at the report time. So again, many of you may be familiar with it, but then again, I just want to kind of more of a highlight it and kind of discuss that. So once you have that print for GL, just saying, you can select GL or select segment at this report type. If you select GL count, this will give you general ledger segment balance in the financial report. Then once again, segment substitution at the report time. And that's what we discussed earlier. So, but one of all the other area that people usually ask me about is I'm trying to create totals in my report. How do I go about doing it? Well, first of all, you need a column. So you want to go to a column called create totals. Now you can create a total of any different combination you see fit. Now in this particular case, I'm doing a ending net asset balance, which I'm taking all my revenues and all my expenses, plus any beginning net assets, any adjustments in net assets. So I'm making that total. However, I could have created a subtotal, called net revenues and expenses into the additional line here, and then I can just bring my revenues and expenses. So what you really want to do is take it from what's available in the area and bring it to the information you want. Now keep in mind though, is my PowerPoint, I try to give it to detail as much as I can. So this is pretty much what I'm talking about in that section here. So now, after you apply to all your different combination of your statement level formats and also in your segment substitution, here's a sample report giving you segment substitution and expenses, but also in the statement level on my 2 and my revenue side of it, because knowing that expenses is level 1, this is level 1 right here, but also then I went ahead and saying this is my level 2 because, oops, I hate it when I do that. So here is my level 2 because I went ahead and changed the statement level 2. So I have a question here. Where's my question? Someone's asking a question. It's saying that how do you create, let's see here. The creating total option is grayed out in my financial statement format. How do I access this tab? Okay, let me go ahead and do the little quick demonstration of the MIP. So if I go down to the reports, financial statements, create statement format. So let me go to my statement of activities. So what you want to do is that if you want to create totals, one of the things you have to do is on your section option, you have to make sure that you specify your section option as a total. Because if you notice here, if I go over to adjusting that asset, it is grayed out, because if I look at my properties over here, well, I am not specifying that as a total. Therefore, it's not going to give me a total section. But in this particular ending net assets, my property on my section option is specified section type as total. Therefore, it's going to give me a create total tab. Okay, so I hope I answered that question there. Okay. So as you can see, the report kind of gives you the way you want. Again, I switched the report up, giving you a different statement level with a segment substitution. It kind of gives you a little bit cleaner report that you want to give it to your outsider board member, or maybe your financial report for your audit. So many of you guys have been known that pretty much knows how to create an MIP report. Okay, well, we know there's a setup tab, content tab, filter, group, column total, options, layout, and security. But in this particular sections, I really want to talk about is the content, the groups, and the column totals. Now, many of you may not have seen the column totals when we do like a trial balance report, or maybe we do the revenues and expenses. Some of them may not be available. Well, in this particular report, we have a column totals. So many of you may not have seen this, or many of you have. But I just want to, those are the areas I want to discuss today. So again, many of you know the setup tabs right here. Give it a report name. We know about the headers and the footers, and then print the footers. But we have a lot of the questions people are asking about this count balance begin date right here. So hopefully I can just shed some light on this. The count balance begin is a date that determines the beginning of your balance entry used for the report. Typically, this is a date when your beginning balance was entered by your organization for the first time, or the first day of the following of the last fiscal year that was closed. So the key, so the key here is the last fiscal year that was closed. So for example, I'm using at 1/1/2016. Therefore, that means that my balance from January 1 of 2015 through December 31st of 2015 has been closed. My fiscal year has been closed, and I have rolled that over using MIP closed fiscal year. So my account balance now starts at 1/1 of 2016. Okay. So let's say, for example, if you have not, maybe some of you, maybe your fiscal year starts in July and ends in June, and we're 3 months after the July is over, but maybe you still need to make any audit adjustments, so you haven't closed your fiscal year. So therefore, if you haven't closed your fiscal year from 7/1 of 2015 through June 30th of 2016, then your account balance begin will be 7/1 of 2015. So that's the key there, is that we always put the date here as the last fiscal year that was closed. Now that's going future. Now if you're going past to get some historical information, then you just want to plug in the first day of that fiscal year that you're trying to get to. But going forward, if you haven't closed the fiscal year, this is always the date that you want to refer to as the last fiscal year that was closed. So I hope that kind of brings a little bit of a light into that regards there. The current reporting year began. And this section right here is the date that you want that report to begin in your reports here. And so say, for example, going back to again, say if I haven't closed my January 1st to the December 31st, 2015, then but I want my information come forward because I want to bring net asset value. I still plug this as 1/1 of 2016, but if I haven't closed my prior year, I'll still make this 1/1 of 2015. I hope that makes sense there. Okay. Also, one of the things that the MIP allows you to do is you can run your program. For example, your program may not fit your agency fiscal year. So if you're producing a different year based on your account balance, again, make sure that you still have to point to the system when your last fiscal year was closed. But on the current reporting begin, you can change that to the date of the first of your desired program year. So I hope that makes sense there too. So again, get the combination of what the beginning balance of the system recognizes, but on this report, begin saying that's not necessarily not want to match your agency fiscal year, so that you can change that. Okay. The current reporting date is that you can use a custom date. You can do a last year, last month, last period, last quarter, whatnot. Just basically a date range of your detailed transactions that are reported. Okay. So one of the things I also say is that if I'm using this report every month, so instead of coming to changing it, I usually set this date item to last month. So when the November comes around, the system's going to automatically remember and say, oh, okay, now I went to October. So what I'm trying to do is minimize touch as much as I can. So now also in the content tab of your financial report or the report writer, there's something called item by page and combined columns. Now most of us usually recognize the item by column or item by page is kind of like a page break. But notice in this particular instance, in this particular report, we have a combined column. So what we can do is we can break it down by the fund, in this place it's fund code, but instead of doing a page break, I'm going to put each fund into its respective columns. That's what this content allows us to do. Okay. Then also in the report body, there's something a little different in this particular report. We have a repeat columns. What this repeat column allows you to do is that when the new report is on the new page, the additional columns will be on the second page to give us because remember when we don't use that column, we get a bunch of information, but then next page don't have us give us what the columns are. Well, this repeat column, and anytime you see this, it'll kind of give us the opportunity to give that additional columns into a subsequent page. Now, keep in mind though is that this reported body is only available on the financial statement reports with the exception of GASB financial statements. So I just want to give you that option there too. So let's also keep in mind though this is for the report purposes to help you out. The other columns that I was saying earlier I was talking about is the column totals. So let's take for example we have fund code 01, 04, and 05 and 06. But I want a subtotal combined of 01 and 04. Well, we have a column total that allow us to give us a subtotal here. Now, keep in mind, though, is that following column is only available in statement of activity, combined balance sheet, combined statement of revenues and expenditures, and combining statement of cash flow. Also, we have this little refresh record over here. Now, what would we need to refresh? There was time where we used to add it, say for example, add a new fund or different programs, but sometimes the report doesn't recognize that new fund or new value that you added. So what we want to do is we want to refresh that button, and by refreshing it, then the system will allow us to give any new code that you put into that report. Because one of the things we used to see is that people added new values in the chart of account, but in the reports in the column total, so we simply hit refresh and it will add the values for you. Okay. So just like I said, here's your code, your title, subtotal, and subtotal title. Now I'm just calling this subtotal just a subtotal. Don't want to take too much time to make it fancy. So in my example right here, I want the subtotal for 01 and 04. So I simply put it into the 04 area and put my title that I want to put in. So that will give us a column with the 01 and 04. Then I'll have another column called subtotal, and then 05, 06, and so forth and so on. Okay. Also, initially when you create a code, everything comes in a sequential. But let's say, hey, you know what? I want my 06 to next to 01. You can just highlight the value and just simply drag it to the value that you want. So then you can just move this combination of however you see. So that so it doesn't have to be in the initial order that way you want. You can always move that value as you see fit. Okay. So then again, kind of going over to segment substitution, we're pretty much familiar with ourselves. But I want to talk about the statement level here. Remember earlier I talked about in our reports we talked about statement level 1 and level 2 and level 3. MIP only allows up to a statement level up to 3. So we can control the different levels of the reporting that you wish to put in. So here's my blow of my using a statement format with a segment substitution and then statement level 1 and the column total. So remember the statement level 1, so I brought it into to say now instead of showing to different individual lines, but because I put it to the highest level available in my revenue, notice it's not broken down into individual line. It just gives me a summary value here. Where my expenses, because I am doing a segment substitution for my programs, so giving me a report. But also notice right here, subtotal. So it's what the system is doing is adding the operating fund and the state grant fund and giving me a subtotal, and then gives me other value into that information that I'm looking for. So that is how the subtotal section works in the column total. Okay, then if you put in the budget information, we make sure that we define what particular version of the budget we're using. Okay. Then if you want to include equity section in your report, you can check it or not check it. You can also include encumbrance as expenditure. Keep in mind though is that this only function works if you have an encumbrance module. Year-end adjustments. By default, I usually like to have this checked. The reasoning for that is, you know, most of the times when we enter MIP, is all normal entry type. Most of you may not recognize it as a transaction entry goes, but the entry type in your transactional line is usually normal. But every once in a while, if you make any adjustments, you use like an A for adjusting entries. So I usually check it by default because you never know you make an adjustment entry, so therefore I always want to include an adjustment entries there. Then we have a suppressed columns with column when it's 0 for entire report. You know, if it's a 0, I don't want to see it. Again, that's more of a personal preference. Then you have an option to round your reports to make it a none, or you can make it to the whole if you wish. All right, so that kind of concludes the financial statement. Now I kind of want to go and talk about report groups. I've been doing some lot of training over the years, and I noticed a lot of the people, when I talk about report groups, some are excited about it, but majority of them don't know about report groups. Well, basically what the report group is, again, is just another way of summarizing your account data. I have also used in the other instances where maybe a state requires you to submit your financial report based on their chart of account, not necessarily into your chart of account or your information. Or maybe you want to combine certain reports to match your funders' line items. Well, the report group allows you to do that, so you can group them together to make it a set. The report group that I usually like to use, and if some of you are using drill point, and if you're using a drill point with the report group assignments, then that's another way to maintaining your chart of account in the drill points by using MIP report groups. Okay. So to get to the report groups, you go to reports, assign report groups, and then you want to assign what report group that you're looking for. So first we want to do is like what segments that you want to work with. Okay, so you can work with any segments in your MIP chart of account, whether it be a fund, program, grant, GL. This is my particular database, so that's pretty much I'm naming up those segments. But the segment that you can pick for your database or for anything that you wish to use. So then, and you said anytime you select a segment, then you have to give a group set name. Okay, so you got to give that group set that you wanted to give. Then what you could do is in the group code, in this particular case, I call it ATT. It's basically I wanted to name it because maybe this is a match in the report that I'm looking for. So, and these are the what's been available to me. What's been available to me, and so I move it over to in the characters. Now, keep in mind though is that short title, you're only limited to a maximum of 15 characters. Okay. Okay. And then on my available counts, again, I'm moving from the 501 and 508. That was available, so I'm moving from the selected. Okay. So once you have the report group assignment signed, then you can go to your content tab, and you can do the item by page. In this particular demonstration, I'm using the item by page and using the grant group code that I signed. Then once I sign that content in my group in the item by page, I have to go to my groups tab, and I have to sign what group set that I'm using. So in this particular case, I told them to grant group. I want it in column. Now I have to go and sign what group that I'm using. So now here's an example of using my group set with the different names changing. So I hope you can see that difference there. So just another way of flashing out your report. Okay. Once again, I talked earlier about the fiscal year other than organization. So this is an example that I was telling you about. And this is basically running the report based on the activity. So now also I just want to let you know this PowerPoint is available. So ask Mary and she'll be happy to send it to you. Okay. So I kind of went to more of a detailed information. So I just don't want to sit there and discuss about that because most of you are familiar with this. All right, then there's the other thing that people usually or maybe not realize, that we know we can create a custom columns. Okay, it's like, well, what do we need custom columns for? Well, one of the things we can do with custom column is that we're able to add or subtract or do some different mathematical information, or we can do a date override based on information we're looking for. So we can add more columns. Okay. So your icon is available right here, so in the custom column creation. So anytime you see this particular icon in the report, you can create a custom columns. So in this example here, we're going to talk about the custom column. Then we have a different column type. We can do either date override, or we can do formula editor. Formula editor will allow us to put a formula. The date override will allow us to put specific date that we want to put in there. So here, so first I do is I want to give it a custom column name. I'm just going to call it more of a variance. Then you can say formula or date override. So here's the custom column based on a date override, meaning that actually based on, and I can say a fixed date, meaning that 9/1/2016 to 9/30, or whatever the date that you want to put in. Or you also have it based on a rolling date, okay, so meaning that you can relative to a particular time frame. So let me go ahead and open it up, kind of show you in the MIP. So if I go to reports and the financial statement, let's go over here. And go to custom column. I can say date override. I can say relative to, current reporting year or opening balance. So you can do that. I think then you can go back to the period, month, quarter, year, or year to date. Or you can just back to the fixed date, and you can change it to any date frame that you want, so that you can, maybe you want something hard-coded into the report. So you can create multiple columns based on that, so you can get a historic value. Again, it kind of gives you all, it all depends on how you want to apply those information. Then on the formulas, we can create different formulas here. So let me go back to my PowerPoint. Okay. So in my PowerPoint, so if you want to use a formula bar, you can say take the current year actual minus prior actual. Then I can, So then I can get the formula. Then I can get the result as a percentages, or I can do calculate as a budget variance. I can do how many decimal places. Now, one of the things I really like about formulas, maybe I can do, say, percentages based on different columns. So you can pick any of the different columns available and apply your mathematical formulas to any different columns that you want. And that's the beauty of the custom columns, is it's very flexible, so that you can create the report the any way you see fit. Okay. Then once you create a custom column, go ahead there, and it becomes available in your report body. So I just want to kind of show you that the custom column name that I created called variance. So now it becomes available column, and you can move it from the available to selected. Okay. Now also keep in mind, though, I just want to let you know that you can create as many column as you see fit. There is no, there's no limit to it. But then again, but again, though, in the report body, you can only squeeze in so much of that information. So that's pretty much really kind of gives you additional functionality at MIP. So now I just want to go ahead and open up the question.